All right, good morning, Chevra. Good morning. We're learning Leilei Nishmas Bas Yefiga Bas Yisrael, Levi ben Yosef, Yosef Bas Yitzchak, and Pinchas Menachem ben Avram David. And Befrat today is the yahrzeit of tonight's the yahrzeit of my aunt Chava Yita Bas Chaim Zelig Yitzchak HaKohen, her first yahrzeit. My mother's sister, who our daughter is zocha to be named after, Chava. Today's a very, to me, this is a thrilling, here, pass these around please, thrilling shiur that I've thought about, I've thought about this, what we're going to be learning about for many years, because what we're doing today is going into, we're going to be flies on the wall. I don't know, fly on the wall. I don't even know what the right terminology is. No, but fly on the wall is like ichsa, like something more than fly. I don't know, fly bee. Sometimes they bother us.
The one that hides under the Chassidus hides under.
Much better. We're hiding under a table in the town of Liadi this morning. And in our discussions of Rebbe Nachman's traveling, when Rebbe Nachman came back from Eretz Yisrael in the summer of 1799, Rebbe Nachman meets the Alter Rebbe. And this is the first of two meetings that Rebbe Nachman and the Alter Rebbe had. Just to say those two names together, you have to, I'm sure you feel it, it's mavhil, it's frightening, it's awesome, it's unbelievable, and we have pretty clear and good documentation of what took place at these two meetings. It's based on a lot of svarim that both in Lubavitch and in Breslov has. There's a lot of different remuzim and anecdotes from a lot of different places, but a number of years ago I bought this sefer. It's a beautiful sefer called Masa Berditshev. Masa Berditshev is actually from Chabad. It's a Rav named Rav Monshine, Yeshua Monshine, put together the Alter Rebbe's journey that he made to Breslov, Berditshev, and Medjugorje in the years, this would be 1809, I believe. No, it's a number of different years. So it's a journal of the Alter Rebbe's journeys throughout everything. And so we have this documentation coming more from a Chabad source, but they needed a lot of info from Breslov resources to paint a full picture. So the Alter Rebbe is much older than Rebbe Nachman, right? The Alter Rebbe of Lubavitch is much older than Rebbe Nachman. And Rebbe Nachman, when he comes back from Eretz Yisrael, how old is he? If he's coming back in 1799? 27, yeah. 20, it's right, it's Rebbe Nachman's 27, which is our 85. What's Masha Gazi? Alavai. What are you trying to cheshbon?
Like 54.
The Alter Rebbe, more mamash like, mid-50s, 54, 55, no. You know, the first thing that I thought about, I'll tell you the truth, was if I said to myself, if someone would ask me to draw an illustration of a color illustration of this meeting, what color would the Alter Rebbe's beard be? That for some reason, we think of the Alter Rebbe, we go, obviously because of the painting, the picture that we have is based on a portrait, right? But we go right away to an old man with a white beard. I'm thinking, 50, it was probably pretty grayish white, but even a younger version of the Alter Rebbe of what we've envisioned, right? And Rebbe Nachman's 27. All we know about Rebbe Nachman in terms of a visual is that he had a long thin payas and a scruffy red beard. Rebbe Nachman had the gingy. But we have that from one of the descriptions in the Svarim. But this meeting is pashut awesome. It's incredible. Now I want to actually, for the seder of our learning, turn the page. It's the third page that you have will describe the meeting that we are going to be doing just chronologically, and then we'll go to the second meeting that they had, which is more shayach to the chronology of this sefer. So here it starts off by saying about Rebbe Nachman and the Alter Rebbe meeting, after it discussed the first meeting that they have written here. That wasn't the first meeting they had, but we'll go backwards afterwards. A little bit confusing, but you'll see. אך לא הייתה זו פגישתם הראשונה של שני צדיקים אלו. מעט יותר מ10 שנים לפני כן, 10 years prior to the second meeting that they had, ביקר הרב רבי נחמן בביתו של רבינו בליוז'נה. Rabbi Nachman came to the Alter Rebbe's home. ביקור שמתקשר למסופר בפרק הקודם, על רוח הפירוד שהחלה לנשב במכתביו של הרבי רב אברהם קליסק אל רבינו משנת תקנ"ז ואילך. Let me try to explain. Remember last week we were speaking a lot about Reb Avram Kalisk, Reb Avram of Kalisk, that he, together with Reb Mendel of Vitebsk, the students of the Maggid of Mizrich, were the ones that made Aliyah, and they were the ones that were handling also the ma'ot, the distribution of tzedakah that was being collected by the Chassidim, befrat the Alter Rebbe, from Ukraine, from whatever you want to call that region then, towards Eretz Yisrael. And there was machlokas, like there is in all these inyanim, that there was all these shailas about where it's going, how it's being distributed, who should get, who shouldn't get, who should lead it, v'chulei. And it started to cause a bad smell, so much so that when Rabbi Nachman was coming to Eretz Yisrael, remember there was a whole suspicion about him because they didn't know who he was. There was a suspicion about him saying, are you coming here to pose a threat to Rebbe Avram of Kalisk or not? Rabbi Nachman had nothing to do with this. But we see from letters that were written from the year 1797 on that Rebbe Avram of Kalisk is writing letters to the Alter Rebbe, and they're very interesting letters. They're sad letters, not so happy, describing the tension that's happening right now. And Rabbi Nachman was mamish a peacemaker over here, as we'll see right now. So, et hachodashim harishonim shel shnat tafkuf So that means the first months of 1798, 1799, that year, right? Asar Rebbe Nachman be'Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe was doing that in Eretz Yisrael. That's when he comes to Eretz Yisrael. It's the night before the beginning of Taf Kuf Nun Tet. That's September 1798. So the first few months of that year, Rebbe Nachman does in Eretz Yisrael. Biyoto b'Tveria nifgash kama pa'amim im harav Reb Avram Mikalisk, like we saw. He met him a few times. Ube'achat mehen hiftiach l'Rav Mikalisk. In one of the meetings that they had, he made a promise to Reb Avram of Kalisk, shetekef b'chazrato lechutz la'aretz yisa el Rabbeinu Hazaken. He's gonna, as soon as he gets back, he's gonna go to the Alter Rebbe. He promised Reb Avram of Kalisk that he's gonna go to the Alter Rebbe. Ve'ikach imo dvarim b'kesher lema'ot Eretz Yisrael, and he'll take with him words of appeasement to try to make shalom as to how the whole thing was being handled regarding the money that was geared, that was coming to Eretz Yisrael. There needed to be shalom. There needed to be a middle person. You see, there's so much back then. The distance. I mean, how long did it take for letters to even arrive? So there was so much lost in translation.
Who was sending these funds?
So the Alter Rebbe was collecting them. Yeah, and there was what's called shadarim. Shluchei derabanan. There were these people that would travel, that would be the ones to carry it. I don't know about any type of mail service that functioned back then as to a trustworthy one that would be the distributor of the funds, but that's what was going on. So he promises him, this is amazing, Rebbe Nachman promises Rebbe Avram of Kalisk that when he goes back to home, he will go to the Alter Rebbe, and he will speak with him. Now, Rabbi Nachman at this time, home was a very relative concept as well, right? But it wasn't living right next to the Alter Rebbe. Liozhna and the area where Rabbi Nachman was quite far actually. But look what he says here. Bigilal, in the third paragraph, Bigdal haftachato zo, because Rabbi Nachman promised to make shalom with the Alter Rebbe. Hine bechazarato me'eretz Yisrael ubevo'o li'iro lebeito. He's coming back to his home in Medvedevka. Lo yarad klal min ha'agala likanes habayta. He didn't even go off the carriage to go back to his house. Meaning he had to pass his house in order to get to where the Alter Rebbe is. He doesn't even go off of the carriage. He doesn't stop for a breather. He doesn't go home. Ela himshich b'darko upana lekivun Liozna. But he continued towards the Alter Rebbe. Ubilishon hasefer Chayei Moharan, and this is amazing that this Lubavitch Sefer is now quoting Chayei Moharan, which is like Rebbe Nachman's unofficial biography. It says like this: Gam techef bevo'o me'eretz Yisrael nasa le Liadi. We know him as Rebbe Shneur Zalman of Liadi. Liozna, is there a difference between the two, between Liadi and Liozna? What's that? Right, but by Lubavitchers, there's so medayek on every single thing, whether it was Liadi or Liozna, but it's one of the places that could have been, and that's already in the same mamish, the same area. So gam techeh bevo be'eretz Yisrael nasa lakadosh l'Rav Chosid hagaon mefurusam morenu harav Shneur Zalman zechetzal kadosh livracha vediber imo harbe me'inyan anshe Eretz Yisrael. Can you imagine this? Rebbe Nachman is sitting in the Alter Rebbe's living room, or whatever it was, and they're sitting and they're schmoozing, and he's telling him all about Anshe Eretz Yisrael, the Yidden that he met when he was in Eretz Yisrael. Ki be'et heyot Rabbeinu Zal be'Eretz Yisrael, shicheru panav sham sheyehu Zal sham. He had a lot of pressure put on him while he was there, that he should also be there in Eretz Yisrael, like stay there. ובעניין זה יש כמה מעשיות לספר מה שעבר עליו בעת נסיעתו לשם, ובהיותו שם, ובחזרתו משם, like we've seen. This is the Breslover's book saying, and there's so much to discuss about what Rebbe Nachman went through when he was in Eretz Yisrael. Back into the Lubavitch understanding of this. מעט מאירועים אלו נתפרשו במקורות נוספים. We have a few other different sources explaining this meeting. בבואו לשם, when he came to the Alter Rebbe, B'Shabbat Chazon, Taf Kuf Nun Tet. Here we have a date even. There's a machlokus about this date, of course, but this is a date that we have to work with. The summer, the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, summer of 1799. Diber im shnei anashim shel Harav Admor Zaken me'inyan Chabad. He was with two of the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim speaking about the whole inyan of Chochma, Bina, and Das. They were talking and learning. ורבנו זכר לקדוש לברכה מברסלב, ביקש מהם שיפרשו לו איזה עניין. Rebbe Nachman wanted these two Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe to explain a certain matter to them. אחר כך ביקש האדמו"ר את רבנו זכר לקדוש לברכה, לומר לפניו תורה ולא רצה. Then the Alter Rebbe asked Rebbe Nachman to say Torah, but he didn't want to. Rebbe Nachman refused. ואמר הרב תורה בערך 8 שעות. So then it says that the Alter Rebbe spoke then for 8 hours. Now, you should just know, this is already like, it's hard for us to fathom such thing. Do you understand what they just said here? Did you ever hear someone talk for 8 hours? Besides yourself and your mind?
The last Rebbe. I
Who?
I didn't stay awake for it all, but they said.
Yeah. 8 hours, that's...
It's a thing by them.
Well, the only thing is that the other sources say that Dafka the Alter Rebbe would speak actually not long. And it was the Mittler Rebbe, the second Rebbe, who would speak much, much longer. So this is an interesting thing. Anyway, whatever it was, the Alter Rebbe starts giving over Torah. ואמר רבנו זכר צדיק וקדוש לברכה, שבדבר זה הותרצו getroffen, kala el hamatara. That Rebbe Nachman said that the Alter Rebbe hit bullseye with what he was saying. Shesiyem azal pasuk, as he finished teaching about the pasuk, Rachamecha Rabim Hashem. As is of dir get agrois rachmonas, rachmonas gdola hi alecha ribono shel olam, which means, there's a lot of different ways of understanding this. There's a lot of rachmanis on you, Hashem, or it means Hashem's rachmanis is so big on the world. And the way that the Alter Rebbe brought it down, Rebbe Nachman says he hit bullseye with it.
That's when it says here, Rabbeinu.
Right, so we have to keep, it's not so pashut. You have to keep on going back and forth as to what source this is coming from. If it's a Lubavitcher Sefer, obviously it means the Alter Rebbe. If it's a Breslover Sefer, it means Rebbe Nachman. Harabi Rebbe Nachman atzmo chazar be'oznei anashav et dvarav elu shel Rabbeinu Hazaken. This is what's interesting. That when Rebbe Nachman made it back to his chevra, to his Chassidim, he repeated the Torah that he heard from the Alter Rebbe. He gave it over to them. Kfi shekotev Rav Choshev Rebbe Avram Chazan, bno shel Rav Choshev Rebbe Nachman Mitulchin. Rebbe Avram Chazan was one of the great leaders who also lived here in Eretz Yisrael, of the Breslov Chassidim. They call him Rebbe Avram Ber Rebbe Nachman. He was the son of Rebbe Nachman of Tulchin, who was a student of Rebbe Nassim. And this Rebbe Avram reported like this: Shamati b'shem Admor Moreinu Rebbe Nachman, shesiper zot b'shem Harav Tzadik Reb Shneur Zalman v'Liadi, shepiresh es hamikra rachamecha Rabim Hashem, who explained when the pasuk says Your Rachamim is so great Hashem, Hainu Rachamecha. Harachmanus she'alecha Hashem kivyachol rabim ve'atzumim me'od. So these are still things that are remaining hidden in Nister, because we don't understand yet what this actually means, that Hashem's Rachmanus is very big. But after hearing it for 8 hours from the Alter Rebbe, Rebbe Nachman had a hasag of what that meant, and then gave that over to his Talmidim. Now we continue. Hed mi bikuro zeh, an echo from this visit that Rebbe Nachman had with the Alter Rebbe, nishma b'michtavo shel Rav Mikalisk el Rabbi Rebbe Nachman. So the Rebbe Avram of Kalisk and Rebbe Nachman would continue to communicate, and there was a letter that was written after this meeting from Rebbe Avram of Kalisk to Rebbe Nachman. V'samachnu me'od asher shamanu mishifat Shlomo ki ba lebeito b'shalom. We're so happy to hear that you've returned home, Rebbe Nachman, and that you came to meet with the Alter Rebbe. V'ra'inu shekesher avotot ahava lo zaza, b'chol levavot doresh tovotenu, v'sam lederech pa'amav, v'nahag nesiato be'atzmo lemedinat Raisen. Okay, so to explain this without context is impossible. What Rebbe Avram of Kalisk is basically letting Rebbe Nachman know, he says, whatever the shlichus was for Rebbe Nachman to accomplish by the Alter Rebbe, it worked, because we're so happy to hear that on his own, the Alter Rebbe now has decided to journey elsewhere to another area, probably to go and collect, to continue the important shlichus of collecting tzedakah for Eretz Yisrael. And the Alter and Rebbe Avram of Kalisk is so happy to hear this. Yehi ken Hashem imo. Hashem should be with the Alter Rebbe in his journey. We have no idea. We don't have anyone reporting to us as to how the collection is going in that area. But acharei nesiat kvod turato l'sham, v'nitrei panim, v'yisaper lehem mikol atla Hashem etza'atnu. I'm sure the Alter Rebbe, kvod turat, that's kaf taf reish, is the Rashi Tevos, kvod turato. We will see, Bezrat Hashem, what will happen when he comes back. Metzapim anu shiyodia lanu. This one I don't know. Reish vav mem ayin. I was looking for it. I couldn't figure it out. It's probably another description of the Alter Rebbe. He will explain to us bepratiut mikol asher asa Hashem. So, and it'll explain to us. He'll let us know what exactly happened there. But the point of this meeting, of documenting this, is that the Alter Rebbe was a Rebbe. You know what I mean? The Alter Rebbe wasn't like... The Alter Rebbe was already a manhig over here. He was already... And he comes and he meets this 27-year-old kid. Think about it. It's the ages... What did you say, 54? And 27. And he's coming from Eretz Yisrael. He has a message from his old friend, the Alter Rebbe's old friend, that things got wishy-washy over those years of being far and distant regarding the distribution of gelt, of tzedakah. And Rebbe Nachman was somehow able to mashpia that the flow should continue to be, and the Alter Rebbe was mekabel from Rebbe Nachman, whatever he had to say. Now this is, if I told you this, learning this out of a Breslover book, you'd say to me, this is just a Breslover book, so of course they're going to say that Rebbe Nachman was able to give something over to the Alter Rebbe. This is a Lubavitch book, what we're learning out of today. And they're saying here that it came out that Rebbe Nachman was poyel, and then after he met the Alter Rebbe then continued and journeyed and continued the functioning like the way that would make them happy in Eretz Yisrael. So that's very special. So just, they're going to add a few things here on the bottom. Min ha'inyan lavi kan iskurim nosafim shel Rabbeinu hazaken v'torato. Let's bring a few more things regarding when the Alter Rebbe and Rebbe Nachman had some kind of kesher. Befiv shel Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. Just to show you, I didn't put it in your pages, but here they published the whole letter. This is Rebbe Nachman's handwriting. This may be one of the communications that was taking place back then. I could send this out to everyone, but this is also, he was a real person. He was here. He used a pen. He had fingers. They formed letters, which formed words. No, because sometimes, Breslovers, they take Rebbe Nachman, it's almost like completely detached from any form of being able to relate to him. That's how I feel like quite often, But then I see, he actually wrote things and he was in this world to a certain extent. Okay, בתחילת התקרבותו של הרב רב נתן מברסלב, turn the page. תלמידו הגדול של הרבי רב נחמן לרבו. So as Reb Nassim began to get close to Rebbe Nachman, סיפר לו Rebbe Nachman, this was in Chodesh Elul Taf Kuf Samech Beis, that means it's about August, September time, 1802. That was when Rebbe Nassim was getting close to Rebbe Nachman. Rebbe Nachman told him Shalosh Ma'asiyot. He told him 3 different tales. He doesn't say which tales he told him. It just says that Hamaaseh Hasheni Ma'arav Reb Shneur Zalman Liadi. The second tale was a story that had to do with the Alter Rebbe. Shayalo Talmid she'amar 8 shanim Torah al Torah achat me'arav. So he said that this story is that the Alter Rebbe had a student who said Torah for 8 years based on one teaching that he heard from the Alter Rebbe. Ubazeh rimez miyad al Moreinu Reb Nassim. שירבה מאוד לחדש בתורתו הקדושה של מורנו רב נחמן. This is amazing. In Breslov, they learned this out to be that when Rebbe Nachman was meeting Reb Nassim and he told him over that there was a Talmud of the Alter Rebbe who spent 8 years deciphering and writing Torahs on one Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe, so in Breslov, they understand that to mean that Rebbe Nachman was already giving the instructions to Reb Nassim that you're going to spend much more than 8 years, but you're going to spend your life non-stop taking each Torah that I said and writing more and more and more about it. But what struck me is that Rebbe Nachman meets Reb Nassim in 1802 in Elul, and he tells him this story. Kimat exactly 8 years later, Rebbe Nachman passed away. That's the time they had together. They met in Elul 1802, and Reb Nachman died in Tishrei 1810. I don't know why they didn't pick up on it here, but I just thought of wow. Reb Nachman meets Reb Nassim, talks to him about the Alter Rebbe's student who spent 8 years saying a one Torah from the Alter Rebbe. That's all the time they had, 8 years. Reb Nassim meets him in 1802. Okay, I hope you're as excited about these things as I am. This stuff thrills me. Pam achad diber, you understand, because inside there's going to be, until Mashiach comes in after, an eternal wrestling match between, Breslov Chabad, and Hashem is going to tell us all, why did you call it 2 different things? And the Chabadniks in Shemaim is going to say, because it is 2 different things. And the Breslover is going to say also, it was 2 different things. And then Chaver that don't have to, our Chaver, Bezrat Hashem will say, no, it's one. It's one thing. פעם אחת דיבר רבי נחמן עם אנשיו בראש השנה, ואמר שאין ללמוד ספרים של דרושים ומוסר, אלא רק אותם ההולכים על פי דברי רז"ל בגמרא ומדרשים וספרי הזוהר הקדוש וספרי האריז"ל. So, Rebbe Nachman once told his students, don't learn the Sifrei Musar that are not based on the Gemara and the Midrashim and the Zohar HaKadosh and the Sifrei Ari. I guess there were other self-help books back then, or books to, I don't know, Musardika books, but they weren't based and rooted in anything. It was just some guy's anger needed to let out the rage, and he put it out in a sefer, and that's what people had. So now they write here in bold typing, V'chein kol asfarim shechibru hatzadikim hasmuchim ledoroseinu shem bnuyim al yesodos hararei kodesh al pi divrei Baal Shem Tov zichrono livracha. So he said, and also learn the sfarim that are from tzaddikim, from contemporaries, right? That are built based on the fabric, the foundation of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. So what sfarim were out then? Shem Sifrei Arav HaKadosh Miponoi, that's the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, V'Sefer Likutei Amarim. Okay, what's the Sefer Likutei Amarim?
Could be the Tanya.
Right, so it's good you said could be, because there's a shaila about that too, right? And let's say for now the Tanya. B'chashav od kama sfarim ke'ele shetov lelomdam. Now, like they continue here, and it says, Af she'en ladat beverur im kavanato lelikutei amorim, amorim mitoros harav hamagid mimezrich, or lelikutei amarim shel Tanya. Back then, the initial publication of the works of the Magid of Mezrich was also called Likutei Amarim. Because what does Likutei Amarim mean? Basically, what does that mean? What's Likutei Moharan? Same thing. It's collections of statements. That was like, they weren't that innovative yet with Noyam Elimelech or Sfas Emes, Tiferet Shlomo, So Likutei Amarim, what are we going to call this? Well, it's just a gathering of sayings, right? So even though he says we're not 100% sure if he's referring to the Magid of Mezrich or of the Alter Rebbe, aval, and this is a big aval. Einenu haroot shesefer Tanya shogur al lishono shel Agon achoshuv harav Rebbe Nachman Cheriner. Okay, now again, Rebbe Nachman of Cherin was a leading Breslover figure after Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. So he wasn't makabel directly from Rebbe Nachman, but he may as well, because he spent his life with Rebbe Nachman. And he had the Sefer Tanya in his mouth all the time. Now you got to understand, these Breslovers, especially the hardcore early ones, right? They would never dare learn something or teach something that wasn't Beruach Rabbeinu HaKadosh Rebbe Nachman of Breslover. So if he's constantly quoting Tanya, and it must mean that there was Mekubal back then, that the Tanya was a sefer that you learn as a Breslover. It's not necessarily true the other way around. There's no inyan by Lubavitchers to learn Likutei Moharan. If anything, it's not so much the inyan. But Reb Nachman Cheriner, for our Chaver, one of the great figures in Breslov is Reb Yaakov Meir Shechter. He's quoting the Alter Rebbe every few pages. So he was this Reb Nachman of Cherin, like it says on the third to bottom line here in this paragraph, Hu shalit b'mirchavei Torat Moharan u'mafli beviura, givat he had such command and control in the teachings of Rebbe Nachman, u'mafli beviura, and the way he explained it was wondrous. Velo zaz mechavevo b'sifro derech Hasidim, ve'ito imo drushe hasidur shel Admor HaZaken hamuvaim sham larov. And then basically, the Torah of the Alter Rebbe was one with this Yid, Reb Nachman of Cheriner. He was always with it. Now, this is another very interesting item. Al Rabbeinu HaZaken mesupar, שבשעה שנתעוררה המחלוקת הגדולה על הרבי מברסלב, רצה הרבי, רב אלתר רבי, לעמוד לימינו ולהגן על כבודו של הרבי רב נחמן. This is brought down in the Sefer Beis Rebbe, which is also these biographical works that were put out in Lubavitch about all the Rebbes. And it says here that when there was a machlokes on Rebbe Nachman, that the Alter Rebbe wanted to stand up and protect the name of Rebbe Nachman. It's not a simple thing, Chavre. It's a very, very big thing. ובלשון אחר נמסר שהאדמו"ר הזקן שלח להכריז. He let everyone know, the Alter Rebbe told everyone, שכל החולק על רבי נחמן הוא כחולק על האדמו"ר עצמו. If you mess with him, you're messing with me. The source of this, as you've seen, it's such a it's such a far out statement that there was a few different sources over here. But this is coming from Lubavitch sources. So we see that there's something beautiful going on over here. Again, their inyanim of how their Torahs came out into the world, it's definitely different. Like when someone that's swimming in the Torah of Rebbe Nachman is swimming with a certain stroke. When you swim in the Torahs of the Alter Rebbe, you're swimming. It's a different stroke. It is what it is. But you have to remember you're in the same pool. That's the important thing to remember. But it is different. It smells different. It appears different. There's something different going on. And anyone that's tasted from both of those, both of those worlds of Mayanot knows exactly what we're talking about. So now, with the time that we have, go back to what they quoted here as the first one. As you see, do you see the second page that you have? There's another letter here that I think this one you do have, right? Yeah, this is a letter from Rebbe Nachman that he wrote the year that he died. It's unbelievable, huh? It's really unbelievable. Okay, so the first page like this. During the trip, now it's kind of sad and embarrassing, but it is what it is. There wasn't just machlokas regarding the tzedakah at that time. By the time that the Alter Rebbe is leading the reins, things have really grown tremendously in terms of what Chassidus is, who's a Chassid, who are you hanging out by, and we see here that there's always tension between those that we would call gej, which means yichus, right? It means like the family, like the geza. That's what it really means. Most Lubavitchers don't even know that it means geza. It's a Hebrew word. Between those that come from the family of the Baal Shem Tov and those that don't. It's not dafka, it is what it is. So by some people, they were very startled by Rebbe Nachman. However, they knew he's the Baal Shem Tov's great-grandson. We have to treat him with royalty, just like we saw the story that when Rebbe Nachman put his head down, when he met with Rebbe Avram of Kalisk in Tveria, and he asked him to give him a bracha, remember what Rebbe Avram Kalisk did? He jumped backwards, he freaked out. He said, this is insane. The great-grandson of Baal Shem Tov lowered his head in front of me. I can't give him a bracha. Then the assistant also lowered his head, and he had no problem giving him a bracha. But there's an Indian here. Now, Rebbe Nachman has a few siblings. One of them is actually, his name is Yisrael. If you've been to the Tzin of the Baal Shem Tov, he's buried right as you walk into the Tzin of the Baal Shem Tov. And Rebbe Nachman has, of course, his mother had two brothers. He had a brother of Moshe Chaim Ephraim, of Sedlekover, and he had Reb Baruch. Now this already is a whole sipur. Reb Baruch of Medjugorje. When you mention his name in Chabad and you mention his name in other places, you hear two completely different worlds, different stories going on. I don't want to get too much into it, although a chunk of this sefer is all about the tension that was between the world of Reb Baruch of Medjugorje, who was the Baal Shem Tov's grandson, was Rebbe Nachman's uncle, excuse me, and the Alter Rebbe. So here he's traveling in this stage that we're in right now. This is 1810. It must be 1810 because of what we're going to say over here in the beginning. So while the Alter Rebbe was going to see Reb Baruch of Medjugorje, בדרכו אל הרב הקדוש רב ברוך, שבאותם ימים היה מושבו בתולצ'ין, he was living in the town Tulchin, ערך רבינו ביקור אצל הרב הקדוש רב נחמן מברסלב הסמוכה. Tulchin, everyone knows, Tulchin and Breslov are very close to each other. We're on the first page right now. טרם שרבי נחמן עקר משם לאומן בחודש אייר של אותה שנה. Rabbi Nachman's house burned down on Chol HaMoed Pesach. And then right after Pesach, they moved from Breslov to Uman. Rebbe Nachman only spent 6 months living in Uman. That's all he lived there for. From Iyar till Tishrei. But before the fire took place, So he's still living in Breslov, and Breslov is right next to Tulchin, so the Alter Rebbe stopped by Rebbe Nachman, and he met him there. Harav Rebbe Nachman yatzal likrato. Rebbe Nachman goes out and greets him. And El Michutz La'ir, he greets him already. He knows he's coming, so he goes to the outskirts of Breslov. What's beautiful is that some of us have been there. We could visualize this. He goes to the outskirts of Breslov to go and escort him, but he goes B'levayat Rabim Me'anashav. He takes a lot of his chevra. Rabbi Nachman had a lot of Chassidim by now. This is already the end of his life. So he comes outside and he greets the Alter Rebbe, V'kavod Gadol Asulo, and they give him great kavod. Ve'amar harav Rabbi Nachman la'anashav. Oh, thank you so much. Ve'amar Rabbi Nachman la'anashav, Tnu kavod l'sar ha'elef. Give kavod to the minister of 1,000. Now, this is going to be, I'm already letting you know, the next year you have to bring your Likutei Moharan. Because go to footnote 62. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nidbarei. לעניין שרי אלפים, במשנתו של רבי נחמן, ראה ליקוטי מוהר"ן תניאנה סימן עין בייז. The 72nd teaching in the second piece of Likutei Moharan discusses in depth, beautiful. I was going to start it today, but it would have been, we need a whole shiur for it. We need a whole Zman for it. It's a long Torah, and we're not going to do all of it. But there Rebbe Nachman goes into the depth of the concept of being a minister of hundreds, a minister of thousands, a minister of 100,000s. What does that even mean? And where does it come from? Where does that lashon even come from? Does anyone know? B'diuk, from Moshe and Yitro. So my plan already now, I'm telling you, is to continue this shiur. I'm not going to be around next Thursday, but the following Thursday will be our last one for the year probably, going in depth to understand what this story that we're about to learn right now. This is very exciting. We're going to understand this story based on the teaching in Likutei Moharan. Yeah.
I need to clarify. Rabbi Nachman is on his way to Rabbi Baruch.
No. The Alter Rebbe.
Ah.
So it's confusing because it's kind of like this safer.
Yeah, okay. So the Alter Rebbe is on his way to Rabbi Baruch of Mezhebush.
Medjebush, yeah, who was Rebbe Nachman's uncle.
Right, who was at that point living in Tulchin.
Tulchin. Rebbe Baruch Medjebush was living in Tulchin.
Okay. And
also,
then,
this guy was.
so the Rabbeinu is the Rebbe.
Arach Rabbeinu is the Alter Rebbe. Remember, this is a Lubavitch
He
book.
went to see Rabbi Nachman.
In Breslov. Correct, because it was close to Tulchin. We're good?
Got it.
Okay. And then as he approaches Breslov, Rabbi Nachman goes to the outskirts of Breslov to greet the Alter Rebbe. Can you just imagine that? I don't know. I don't know what this is. I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out. I've read this so many hundreds of times. Every time I think that this actually happened, mamish chills, and it's not because of the air. It's really. Okay, Rabbeinu ba lebeitol shel Rabbi Nachman. Now listen to this story. It's a simple story, or you think it may be. Rabbi Nachman comes to the home of, the Alter Rebbe comes to the home of Rabbi Nachman. Now why am I freaking out even more? Because on one of my trips to Breslov, someone that was there, that took me around, told me that this was Rabbi Nachman's house. So what I'm freaking out even more is like a little bit of a visualization of the actual home where they met. When you see it, it's, I don't know if I can't make too much out of it, but it's just amazing.
You better burnt down.
What's that?
Better burnt down.
The area, it's not there, but the
Piece of
the land, the land, like where it was. I mean, I'm shocked it didn't burn down when they were meeting together in that room. That's what's shocking to me. Rabbeinu Balab, no, just thinking that those four pupils, those two sets of eyes were looking at each other in this world it's hard for me to comprehend. I just can't believe it. That they actually saw each other, and that the world either still continued to exist or that Mashiach didn't come at that moment.
This is the second time.
And this is the second meeting, correct. So how many years are between the two meetings?
8, 10, 10.
11. The first one was 1799. Now this is 1810. Okay, so Rabbeinu bא לביתו של רבי נחמן, Alter Rebbe goes into the Rebbe Nachman's house, ובאותו מעמד פנה רבי נחמן לגביר רב מוישה צ'ינקס, שהיה מאנשיו, ואמר לו, Rabbi Nachman told one of his gvirim, he said to him, give tzedakah for an emerson Talmid Chacham. Give tzedakah for a real Talmid Chacham. That's here. ועלה הניח על השולחן מטבע זהב. So he put one gold coin on the table, Avur Rabbeinu, for the Alter Rebbe. Pana alav Rebbe Nachman bitmiya. He says, what? Does this get minfer an emerson Talmid Chacham? This is what you give a real student, a Talmid Chacham? So, hiniach rendel nosaf, he put another golden coin. Ksheifchin bifnei Rebbe Nachman shu adayin tameh. So the Gabbai saw Rebbe Nachman still like, are you serious? Osif v'hiniach rendel nosaf. Achat miya lo sara, v'osif v'hiniach ad shenatan 10 matbaot zahav. Till he gave him 10 golden coins. Az garaf Reb Nachman beyado et hamatbeot v'natan beyado shel Admor HaZaken. And then he took all this money, Rebbe Nachman, in his hand, and he gave it directly to the Alter Rebbe. Now, just to understand, there was one of the footnotes here. It explained exactly what the currency was back then. So look at footnote 63. Et erko shel arendo nintan lilmod mikach. What is these coins? We can learn the mikach shekilat Breslov natnat leRebbe Nachman al pi drishato shelo o drishato shel Rebbe Baruch. Whether it was his uncle that said this must be the maskoret, or it was Rebbe Nachman himself that said that he needed rendel echad leshavua. He needed 1 coin a week, leparnasato. V'ayta zon letina bioter mikfi haragil, which was more than the usual of whatever was back then, the salaries that rabbi, I mean, it's weird to say this, but the salaries that heads of kehila or rabbanim used to get. So here, how much is the Alter Rebbe getting? 10 months of what a salary would be for Rebbe Nachman. Al pi Rebbe Nachman's drisha. Sha'ala Rebbe Nachman es ha'admor. Then Rebbe Nachman asks the Alter Rebbe, Ha'emet hu sheyesh lachem 80,000 Chasidim? Is it true you have 80,000 Chasidim? Which was unheard of at the time. 1810? That one Rav has 80,000 Chasidim? I mean, how much long before this did the Baal Shem Tov pass away? Only 50 years. Did the Baal Shem Tov have anything close to 80,000 Chasidim? So this was really like he couldn't believe it. Huh?
Rabbi Akiva had 24 at the time, right?
Thousands of, hundreds.
Years later.
Yeah, but this is nothing to compare. Meaning, that number is very, very fascinating. But here we're saying 80,000 when this concept called Chassidus was still beginning. It was still beginning. Heshiv lo Rabbeinu. So the Alter Rebbe answers him, Shelo yeh davar chidush beinav. He says, it could be. Could be. Why? Mipnei sheyesh lo betoch chasidav gam melamdim rabim. Because amongst my Chasidim I have a lot of teachers. Ulechol melamed yesh harbe talmidim. And every one of my teachers has a lot of students. V'chol tamid noten li tzedakah lachzakat Rabbeinu. And every student of my teachers gives a shtickle tzedakah for holding up the house, right? And I guess that even those that are already twice removed still fall into the category of my Chasidim. Because we know one thing, if he's giving tzedakah to our mosdos, the one thing we know is that he's not going to become a misnagid of mine. ובזה האופן יוכל להיות שיש לו 80,000 חסידים. So he explained that it really could be that this number does add up. יש אומרים, there are those that say, listen to this is fascinating, שבין הדברים רמז לו רבי נחמן לרבינו, שבבוא היום ישתתחו צאצאים זה בזה. I've seen this source in a number of places, that Rebbe Nachman told the Alter Rebbe, you know, we're gonna become mishpacha one day. דבריו נתקיימו כעבור שנים רבות. This actually did happen a few years later. תקע"ז. תקע"ז is 1817. So Rebbe Nachman is not in the world anymore. כשנכדו של האדמו"ר הזקן, that the, huh? And the Alter Rebbe is not around either, right? When neither of them were there to see this, the Alter Rebbe's grandson, Rebbe Aaron of Kremenchuk, who was the son, B'na shel Rabbanit Freda Bas Rabbeinu, he was the grandson of the Alter Rebbe. Nasa bezivuk sheni, his second marriage, his first wife died. He married a woman named Chaya, and who was Chaya? Rebbe Nachman's youngest daughter. That's pretty close. That's really mishpacha. The Alter Rebbe's grandson married Rebbe Nachman's daughter.
Wait, is she the one who's buried in...
No, right? That what?
Freda's the one that's buried.
In Tveria.
No, Miriam.
No, Miriam.
It's Fazman.
The one in Tzfat? No. She didn't make it to Eretz Yisrael.
Do we know any?
Yeah, we know about her? Yeah, it's also in this thing that I found, yeah. I'll send it out. אחר כך ליוו, okay, so after this meeting, if we're finished, אחר כך ליוו אנשי קהילת ברסלב עד ליציאתו מן העיר. So again, they're escorting Alter Rebbe out of Breslov. And listen to this, ושני הצדיקים נסעו יחדיו בעגלה אחת. But Rebbe Nachman and Alter Rebbe, mamish, think about this, blowing in the wind. The end of the script is, and they're on a carriage going out together out of Breslov. So I'm going to ruin it for you because now look at the next page, where they ruin it for us a little bit. כשנסבה שיחתם, it's not ruining it, but it's still showing that there was tachlis to talk about. כשנסבה שיחתם אודות החיכוכים עם רבי ברוך, when they started talking about the tension that happened with Reb Baruch, התבטא Reb Nachman במליצה פטר ברוך. Okay, so you have to understand what this is. Hot ir shoin geferet, Feter Baruch hat ihr nach nit gefertigt. Okay, so what does this mean? It's a play on words. What's klomar mi Peter bu kvar niftartem, me'adot Baruch adayin lo. Okay, what's Petersburg in Lubavitch? When you say the word Petersburg in Lubavitch land, black, jail. That's where he was imprisoned, right? But in Yiddish, Feter means uncle. Feter Baruch means Uncle Baruch, right? So Reb Nachman, they say that he said to the Alter Rebbe, okay, from Petersburg, you're done with, but Feter Baruch, Uncle Baruch, he's still giving you haven't figured out how to get through that one. So there's a lot to say on this last statement. There's been a lot of ma'amarim that have been written as to what was Rebbe Nachman really saying to the Alter Rebbe when he said, you still haven't gone through Uncle Baruch. It's not for our Indian right now, but the last paragraph over here says like this, אחת המסורות יודעות לספר שמשום מה לא הסכים רבינו ללון בביתו של רבי נחמן, אלא דווקא בעגלת מסעו. For some reason, the Alter Rebbe didn't agree to sleep in Rabbi Nachman's house. I mean, would you have agreed to sleep in Rabbi Nachman's house? We can't understand these things, but even the Alter Rebbe is like, I'm going to sleep in my carriage. Moharan Amar, so Rebbe Nachman said, when he heard that that the Alter Rebbe won't sleep in his house, he said, שבוודאי חפץ רבינו להשיח באזני הבעל הגולה בענייני עתיק ואריך. Which means that what happened right now with our meetings, the whole world will never ever know. We'll never know. But the Alter Rebbe needs to let things out, so he's for sure going to start to reveal the secrets of what took place with this meeting with the Baal HaGola. Now, the Baal HaGola was always the Baal Shem Tov had Alexi, right? The Baal HaGola of the Alter Rebbe also was filled with secrets. Who knows what was going on over there as well? Atik ve'arich obviously are the Kabbalistic, concepts that are relating to the deepest levels of the secrets of the Torah. So, in our learning about Rebbe Nachman's life, to me, these two meetings, they become more and more meaningful as we're getting closer to Mashiach, because the world is incorporating more and more of both of these tzaddikim. It's not like one is bigger, one is being learned more than the other. It's hand in hand. Hand in hand. There's more Lubavitch and more Breslov Torah and more celebration of Yiddishkeit happening simultaneously all the time. All the time. And this is a very big moment in Rebbe Nachman's journey back from Eretz Yisrael, as I told you. The Rebbe Nachman's Likutei Moharan that we have, I'm going to get the exact number, but the teachings that we have from Rebbe Nachman from before this journey took place are minimal. We don't have a lot. We have a lot of stories. But Rebbe Nachman was only interested in the Torah that came out after the trip to Eretz Yisrael. And as we'll see when we continue this in the near future with the chronology and what was taking place, the Torahs Rebbe Nachman was saying after meetings with the Alter Rebbe, you see a lot of very, very deep insights. But regarding why Rebbe Nachman asked him and referred to him as a Sar Elef, Bezrat Hashem, next time we learn, you're going to bring a Likutei Moharan, and we're going to see inside what Rebbe Nachman was really saying to the Alter Rebbe, and what he was telling his Chassidim as well. And this meeting happens, the one that we just spoke about over here, we could probably get an exact date, but it's the last year of Rebbe Nachman's life. It could be this is right before Pesach, I don't know exactly.
Precious Easter at the bottom. It says it could be the Shabbos Precious Easter.
Nachon. So yeah, whenever it is, it's that last tkufa of life. Okay, I hope these details were as exciting for you as they are for me, and we'll continue Bezrat Hashem soon.